Changing Earth's surface. Today we're going to interpret topographic maps and satellite views to identify land and erosional features and predict how these features may be reshaped by weathering. So what is weathering? Weathering is when rocks are exposed on the Earth's surface. Processes acting on the rock's surface break it down into smaller and smaller pieces called sediment. Weathering can be physical or chemical. Erosion, the weathering of rock and the movement of the sediment from one place to another. Wind, ice, and water are all agents of erosion. Deposition, when eroded sediment reaches its final destination, it is deposited and often forms a new layer of rock. Again, your agents for deposition would be water, ice, and wind. Physical weathering changes rock without changing its composition. Plant roots wedging into rock, water freezing in rock cracks, and rock collisions all cause rocks to break down. So water is going to seep into the cracks, and then when the water freezes, it expands. And then with repeated freeze and thaw cycles, rock breaks into pieces. This is physical. Chemical weathering is a process in which the chemical composition of the rock is changed. Gases dissolved in water, such as weak acids and salts, act on the rock to break them down into new substances. Lichens, a fungus in a symbiotic relationship with algae, produce acids which chemically break down rock. So here you can have a picture of that. So here oxygen reacts with iron in rock and turns it orange. Okay. And here is your reaction with that lichen on the rock, and that lichen is going to break down the rock. Okay, water also can change, and then acids as well. So today we're going to complete this table based on a reading and videos from the following slides. You can also click to see videos on what river, ocean, waves, glaciers, and wind are, and then you can click here for textbook information. So we're going to read about a river, we're going to talk about the method of erosion, and then the land feature that results. So let's get started. I'm going to play a short video on rivers, and then I'm going to read to you, and we'll go back to that chart. Okay, so we just saw a video on a river. So most landscapes are formed by moving water. As the water collects down a slope, it forms narrower and deeper channels. The water can erode the soil to form gullies, valleys, and canyons. Flowing water can cut small channels a few centimeters deep or great canyons the size of the Great Canyon. Eroded sediment carried by the moving water moves downhill towards the ocean. This sediment is deposited where the river empties a body of water, such as a lake or an ocean. This area is called a delta. Most rivers are curvy rather than straight. Over time, the shape of a river changes because the river shifts sideways in its position. Rivers tend to erode one bank and deposited sediment on the other bank. The river valley eventually becomes wider and wider and the river path much more curved. When the valleys become broad, almost like a flat plain, this is called a floodplain. When the river floods, it spills over its banks and floods the surrounding area. Fine sediment called silt is deposited on the floodplain. So you can see how the river changes the landform. So you're going to go back here, and the method of erosion in a river is moving water. So you're going to type that there. And then some land features that result, you can go back to your reading and you can put channels are formed by running water. Then deltas are also formed. And you can go back and type that in here. So if we go to ocean waves, we'll go to our next reading now, and I'm going to play this video and then read, and we can fill out the chart together. So waves. Rivers aren't the only places where moving water shapes Earth's surface. As ocean waves move towards the shore, they deliver a tremendous amount of energy. The waves hitting the shore slowly wear away the rock material along the shoreline. The wave action can create cliffs, sea caves, and sea arches. Sand beaches are shaped by the waves as well. The waves carry grains of sand over enormous distances. The sand can be carried not only up and down the beach, but along the beach. Over time, huge amounts of sand can be moved along a beach. To preserve beaches, engineers construct long wall structures such as jetties and breakwater barriers. These structures protect shores and beaches, but they often fail during an especially large storm. So we can go back to our chart, and ocean waves, the method of erosion would be waves or wave action, or you can even say moving water. And then the land feature that results, if we go back, we can see that waves are going to make cliffs, sea caves, and arches. And they also reshape beaches. So you can type that information here. Now let's go to glaciers. So I'm going to play this video on glaciers. Okay. So a glacier is a large mass of ice on Earth's surface. The ice in the glacier flows because of its own weight and gravity. As it moves, it scrapes the surface of Earth and carries rocks and sediments along, carving a U-shaped valley. Material pushed by the glacier forms a ridge of sediment called a moraine. When weather warms and the glacier begins to melt, streams of meltwater flow out from beneath the glacier. These streams carry glacial sand and gravel for long distances before they deposit the sediment in rivers. So if we go back to our table, glacier, the method of erosion would be large masses of ice. Okay, the land feature that results, if we go back, we can see that moraines are formed, okay, or valleys as well are formed. So you could type that in the chart. And lastly, we're going to look at wind and see how wind shapes landforms. And this is weather in Australia. So this is a sandstorm. Strong winds and thunderstorms whipped up the massive walls. Huge dust storms in Alaska and in Australia. Okay, and let's go back to our reading. So wind. In places where wind blows, the wind causes small particles of sediment to be lifted and carried to other places. Sometimes the moving particles encounter other rock material or formations and they wear away the softer material. Unusual formations are left behind. Wind erosion often occurs where there is little or no vegetation. An example is the formation of sand dunes. Sand dunes are constantly moving. How fast the dune moves depends on the speed of the wind, the size of the dune, and how much vegetation is present. Some sand dunes are stabilized because they have plants growing on them and they have extensive root systems. The roots help hold the sand in place. So going back, lastly, the method of erosion are going to be winds, and some land features that result would be sand dunes, and I think it just said sometimes unusual formations. Okay, so you're going to respond to the following questions by typing in the text boxes to the right. What is the difference among weathering, erosion, and deposition? Remember, weathering is the breaking down. Erosion is the carrying away. Deposition is depositing that material or dropping that material. What is the difference between physical and chemical weathering? Remember, physical just breaks down. It doesn't change the substance, but chemical weathering, you're changing the substance to a new material. How does weathering, erosion, and deposition change Earth's landscape? It's constantly changing Earth's landscape because weathering breaks down, erosion transports that material, and deposition brings that material to a new place. I hope that was helpful.